Hey everybody, it's Tuesday.
And welcome to this edition of Hook, Line, and Striker.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And we're sitting here laughing because we are going to be here tonight with Brandon Stanton. And he is working with his internet right now, so I don't even know if he's watching us or not. Or but we... So he's in and out. He looks like he's laughing. I see him on our screen. So, we're going to let a few people log in a quick minute, and we will bring in Brandon in a second. A funny thing, we normally prep our guests a little bit before the show, and we haven't prepped them very much. So you guys are going to be able to see this all pretty live. That's awesome. But, with that, as we are talking along the way, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have things to add, please add that. We love hearing from you guys, and sometimes you come up with great questions that I can't even think of, so that's awesome.
Also, make sure that you hit the bell up in your corner over here so that you get notifications every time we go live, and that way you won't miss any of our fabulous guests.
So let's bring in our guest. So we're here with Brandon Stanton. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Brandon.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, awesome. So, we were kind of testing internet before this, and, it was a little bit rocky, but I can hear you pretty good now. So we're excited to be chatting with you.
Well, I had the wife shut down everything off the internet for work, so maybe my computer will grab a little more.
So, Brandon, then, for people who have never met you, can you tell us about yourself?
Well, I'm a longtime ice guide. That's kind of what I'm known for. I charter all year round on Saginaw Bay, Lake Erie, and Detroit River. We used to go to the west side of Michigan, but I since then I traded off the salmon and trout more or less for jig and walleye. Walleye is my game fish of choice, and that's where.
Well,
okay, so not sure. Hopefully, maybe that little glitch will, work itself out, and he'll come back. We heard that he loves walleyes, all around angler. Used to be focusing on ice. I think that's how a lot of people really get involved with fishing these days. With ice season, you really can get out onto the different lakes that maybe you couldn't always access. So
yeah.
That's really
well, and I believe Brandon's a captain too, so he runs charters out on the eastern Great Lakes, which you hear a little bit about with some of the bigger walleyes out of Huron and Saginaw Bay, but you just don't hear very much about it in the Midwest. So, I guess he's gonna try again. So that it'll be a cool thing if we can get him back on. Otherwise, how's your fishing going?
Well, I was also going to say, if anybody at home knows Brandon, if anybody has ever been out on a trip with him, let us know how that is, because if not tonight, if it cannot work tonight, then we will definitely get to him soon, because Absolutely. I am really interested in hearing about that. So if you have any experience, then let us know how that went.
Yeah.
As for your other question about how is fishing going, it's amazing, because between here and the last time we met, water temperatures have skyrocketed.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just crazy. I've never seen it go from 60 to almost 80 so fast. So that's crazy.
It is really crazy, because, for the fish, that makes for a really strange spawning season. So, crappies, maybe they were in and out really fast. Maybe there was little pods in and out. I'm not sure how really our spawn season went for crappies, but we are having some strong bluegill spawn going on right now. The pumpkin seeds, all those different kind of panfish, because, that water temp hit that level that they like, 72, 75 degrees, and, well above that in some cases. And they are tight to the shores, and they are having a great spawning year. So that's been a really, really unique thing to see, the crappies and the bluegills. Sometimes you lump those together as panfish, but especially this year, that has made a little bit of a difference.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I mean, that's it. Like, I'm trying to think of the weather map in my head, and like almost the whole country is covered in this like massive amount of heat, except for like a little sliver maybe on either side of either coast. But like everybody's experiencing this crazy heat wave, and hopefully we'll get a break from it here.
The other thing with that, though, is at least where we are at in Wisconsin, with this heat wave this past weekend, we had a crazy amount of wind. So I feel like a lot of times this high temperatures, high heat comes with kind of stagnant, humid. But in this case, that really shook up the fishing as well, because as fish were, quickly going shallow and then in some cases quickly moving out, anglers were dealing with all of that wind and navigating a boat around such shallows. Sometimes, you're knocking into weeds or reeds or cattails or, sandbanks, so being aware of kind of what's out there has been kind of a lot to deal with. But that means that fish have moved out pretty quickly to their summer patterns,
Well, yeah, and that's interesting to note, because the weeds are, at least where we are way behind where the water temperatures are. I was out working today. I work in water quality, and some of the lakes that we sampled did have some of those weed lines starting to set up, but in a lot of cases, some of the lakes and places that we fish, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen any of that set up. So even though the fish are moved out, it might be hard to figure out where they are, because you do have sporadic weeds. So that might look like fish, but it just might be weeds. So it's going to be a lot of guessing here until the weeds actually set up and you have that hard line to base your boat off of.
Well, and I think it's also been interesting because this change of pattern has happened so fast. I think there's a lot of fish that are using these weed lines and weed edges. And I think, this weekend we noticed that it's going to the summer pattern. And so we did a little bit of trolling for crappies and we had a little bit of success. It'll get us a lot better, that's for sure. But we also picked up walleyes. We also picked up a ton of bass, a few actually with some decent size. So the funny thing is we're seeing all these anglers cast at shore, and I'm sure that there's a few up there too. But, we were finding fish all the way out 10 feet of water. So that's a big difference than, the 1 foot of spawning waters where some people think to go.
Yeah. It's a lot of times you might be sitting right on top of the fish and casting past them. Never underestimate casting off the other side of the boat every once in a while. But with the heat and the wind and the sun and all that, I mean, that gives us a good chance here while we're waiting to talk a little bit about sun safety. I mean, that's something we get really focused on fishing. I get really focused on fishing. You can see, like, I got my thing going here. And one thing that Striker provides a lot of is this kind of stuff. You have the new Alpha Burr that she's wearing. This is the high tide. I wore this to work today. I was out in the boat all day. But with that, keeping yourself protected from the sun, you also have to make sure that you drink all your water, because this will wick all the keep you cool, but it's not going to keep you hydrated.
Well, and I do actually love to talk to you about this, because as far as a person going to work outside in the heat in this temperature wearing long sleeves, that's something that you previously would have scoffed at. I know that. So can you tell us a little bit about how you changed your mind? Is that a hard question? You just put it on and liked it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first line here, this high tide, is really what we kind of got into.
And they come with a buff, which is detachable, and so like you're not wearing it right now.
You see the little loopies here. You can attach the buff. Has the hood on it.
Swap it with the different colors. Also has
the
thumb holes.
Thumb holes, so you can protect your arm a little bit.
And venting material. So certainly the sun protectant, certainly the breathable, certainly
it dries off really fast. If you do get it wet, it's just really comfy to wear. And it, even with the thumb holes, you can fish with it, and it also kind of protects your hands a little bit, almost like wearing a glove. It's all kind of the protection all in one.
Well, and as far as the difference in what we have here, maybe we'll come back to that. I actually see Brandon is back, so let's see how this goes.
Let's try this again.
Take 3.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
No, we were just filling in. We were actually just talking about the sun protection. with the shirts and stuff. So
Emily said something about my 5 or 6 favorite striker items, and actually the high tide hoodie is probably one of the most favorite that I got. I got a little story that goes along with that. I just don't want to get into it. I want to see if I can stay connected for a second.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, that's kind of what got me hooked. And then striker, it was such a popular shirt, this in the graveyard, that they decided to expand on that. There was enough excitement over it. They expanded on it. They brought out a low tide hoodie. Yep. They brought out the Alpha Burr, and they have the swagger shirt. And the swagger shirt is very much like the high tide, just with no hood or buff or the finger holes. It's basically just, I like to wear it just as lounge wear, or like working in the yard, It's just nice in the summertime just to wear. And it's long sleeve. All of them are long sleeve, and I don't know if I would have ever dreamed that my favorite summer wear would be long sleeve.
Yeah, I wear a graveyard every day. It's just about 100 here right now.
That's crazy.
So the last that we heard, you were talking about walleyes. Did you want to keep expanding on that, or were you going somewhere else?
No, I was just giving a little background on who I am and where I'm. I'm from Michigan, and like I said, Detroit River, Lake Erie, Saginaw Bay, that's my home waters. Ice fishing is my passion, but I do guide all year long.
We were talking about, I think ice fishing has gotten a lot of people into other kinds of fishing. Do you think that ice fishing and open water help each other as, fishing each way?
I think it helps me as a guide because I can walleye in Saginaw Bay migrate, so I can keep on the migration all year. It helps me out a lot, with my catch rate and where I should start when open water comes, and what they're doing and what they're feeding on. So they kind of go hand in hand for me.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the concept of being able to follow fish all year long, because, a lot of times many of us get distracted by other bodies of water, but when you have such a large body of water to work with, I mean, that's a really cool thing.
Yep. I do guide other places. I do Lake Erie and Detroit, but that's kind of in between that ice out where you can't get on the ice and you can't get on the open water. So I travel a little bit south down there and do that.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about what's biting around by you now.
The walleye are going good right now. We struggled at first. We've been in a serious drought, and the last week we've got a lot of rain to put some organic matter in the water, give it some color. But we were struggling pretty bad with the super clean water. But it's going good now. All hammering.
Nice.
So with that change in water quality, how does that affect your fishing?
It affects it tremendously. Our charters, we've had to start 3 hours early. We're fishing more of the one and then into the dark rather than midday. Middays, you might as well go get some lunch. They're all compressed right into the dirt on the bottoms. They're not suspended.
That's a really great tip, actually. We've been talking lately, a lot of people have seen waters that are crowded with boats. All kinds of recreation is out there. But you're making a really good point that if you are fishing early or possibly even late, you might avoid a bunch of that boat traffic, let them do their thing and then come back and catch the fish.
Yeah, I'm a true believer in noise. The walleye, even ice fishing, everybody runs to where the big group of people is. I'll separate myself by a mile. Them fish, they feel every one of them. Augers coming through, their lateral lines are so sensitive. I've had people pull up to me on snowmobiles and I can see the vibrations on my Markham screen. And if you can see it on your screen, them fish can feel it. So I stay away from the noise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy. We have Jonathan Hafner checking in from Lake Michigan right now, actually. So, let us know a fishing report. How is the water out there? What are the temperatures? How's the weather? How's the waves? And then compare that. I guess, Brandon, how has the weather been out by you guys? You said it was hot and not much rain.
Right. It's also, this whole year has been weird. It's been windy too, man, real windy. We've been canceling a lot of charters because of wind. It's really been windy.
Yeah, especially when you're, working with larger bodies of water, there's often nowhere to hide. But even on some of these gusty days that we've had, 20 mile an hour, I mean, that pushes us around even on the river when there's like nooks and crannies to hide in.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, Saginaw Bay is pretty much just the open area in the Lake Huron. It gets nasty real quick if it's over 15 mile an hour.
Yeah.
Jonathan is saying out on Lake Michigan, water temps are at 50.9. There's a 1 foot chop. Man, these warm last few days really just get things going. So what are the water temps out by you?
We're up into just about 60. It all depends on the days we have the north winds that blow Lake Huron in. It'll drop back down to 54, 55. But on the calm flat days where it's 100 like it has been, it's up in the 60, 62.
Yeah, that really affects things greatly. So when you're fishing, what is it that what's your go-to? What are you using?
We're mainly trolling here. So running a lot of husky jerks, flickers, bandits, stuff like that.
Then do you have go-to colors?
Yeah, people might not like my colors, but I I like dark colors. No matter what the sun is, no matter what kind of day, I'm a burgundy, a purple, pink. I still go off the old salmon UV scale where those are the colors that stay the brightest, and that's what I run. Confidence lures too. Chromes, gold chrome, silver chrome, especially in the husky jerks. Not fire tiger guy. I hate to say it. Everybody waits for you to say fire tiger, and I'm just not a fire tiger guy.
Well, I think that's an interesting point because there's an application for each different type of bait. There's times that I've gone out and I've been super successful on fire tiger, and there's times where it just isn't the thing. But I think that you're picking some really unique choices, when you're talking dark, like a purple, a scarlet, magenta, or even those chrome colors. I mean, those do stay pretty true when you get them down. And whenever you can create that shadow, those dark baits, when you have a reaction type bite, that strike can sometimes really, really be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Right. Try to match the hatch a little bit too. We have a lot of gobies, so dark, gobies turn when they hit the sunlight. So browns, blacks, that's their main forage here.
Okay.
That's interesting. Out in the Bay, there's gobies now. Green Bay,
yeah.
Right? Yeah, different. For each of us, it's a different the Bay. Isn't that funny? Out on Green Bay, they have the gobies there, and for a while, I'm not sure what the fish are doing, but they've really, really started to learn to eat those fish, I think. And, that's really great when you can put down a bait, match the hatch. What is that presentation? Mimic it, and then you'll get that bite.
Yep.
So then you were saying that you are a multi-species angler. So when walleye are not biting, what is it that you're out doing?
Well, no matter how hot it is, the internet can still freeze.
Oh my God.
Well,
did you have that prepared?
No, off the top of my head. That's why you like fishing with me.
Oh my God, that's okay. Honestly, true.
Sometimes.
Oh my goodness. Just in case we do connect back with Brandon, if you guys at home are listening along, if you have any questions for him, walleye fishing or, any of that in general, let us know.
Yeah.
And then we can certainly connect that question with him. It's funny. We just saw him blink out on our screen. So this has happened a few times. And I guess that's the nature of going live.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
talking with people, in their real lives. They're donating their time to us. We don't pay them or anything, it's just for fun.
Right. Yeah, it's just fun. And just so if you guys wanted to know more, Brandon has the team
Gunsmoke charter fishing. Is
Yeah.
that right? Let me look it up.
Let's look it up.
Because I don't want to be wrong. So if I'm looking it up really quick, I'm actually going to our Crappie Junction page. So you can check this out on Striker because we have it there, but it does say Captain Brandon Stanton, Team Gunsmoke Sport Fishing.
There you go. So go check it out if you wanted to know a bunch more. We got Brandon back here, so we'll keep asking some questions. Hey, are you unfrozen now?
All right, I'm back. I'm trying. We just had a pretty good storm go through too.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, it's keeping everybody on their
yeah,
toes anyway.
If I'm not chasing walleye, we're usually jigging lake trout, trolling lake trout, salmon, and a lot of steelhead.
Oh, that's fun. You like steelhead.
Yeah, it is something that I don't get an opportunity to do enough. And it's something that, to be honest, I'm not super familiar with. So that's a case where, hiring a guide is a perfect situation. Mm-hmm. So, if you are somebody like me that really has no idea what you're getting into, what do you tell those person? Do you have tips? We'll never know.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Never know.
That's okay. It's funny though. I imagine that he can hear us because he came right back on and he knew the question even before I asked him.
Right.
So that was fabulous. For those of you at home, thank you for your patience. Brandon, if you could still hear us, thank you for your patience. I mean, like we were saying, funny nature of it being live. So It is what it is.
Well, and like we were saying, maybe I can take the opportunity to, let's see. We'll go to Facebook and I'll see if I can share his page.
Yeah, that'll be perfect. Gosh, not to change subjects really fast, but prior to this, we were talking about the heat. We are in, I guess, northeast Wisconsin-ish. And our water temperatures rose really quickly. With that, fish moved out into summer patterns pretty quickly, and it's made for some interesting mix-up of fishing. But the one thing that I noticed, especially this past Sunday, is when you catch a fish, I'm talking panfish is at least my experience, you pick these fish up out of the water and they feel warm.
Mm-hmm.
These fish are hot. Sometimes, when it's midsummer and they go deep and you get that fish out of the water and it still feels cool against the heat of the day, and so you can tell that difference. That sounds crazy, but here's why that's important to notice is if you are a catch and release fisherman, that is a super important time to be gentle in the handling of that fish and returning it to the water. Mm-hmm. This is a great time when people like to bring, kids out, families out, people who don't normally fish, because there's a great opportunity for that bite. And especially kids are famous for chucking that fish right off the boat. And it's fun because sometimes they hit that water, they're shot off just right back to where they went, But when these water temps rise this quickly, that actually does make a difference to that fish. So, to be able to teach somebody or show somebody or, take that moment yourself, to dip that fish into the water, make sure that it has that moment to swim off before it just, sometimes you think it swims off and then it's floating a second later,
right.
In that process to revive it. Sometimes that goes a long way and helps that fish survive a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, looks like Brandon's back. Hey, Brandon.
I'm going to try something different. I connected to my hotspot instead of my Wi-Fi.
Oh, there you go.
Well, maybe that'll work a little better.
No worries, man. I mean, this is not, believe it or not, I don't know how many of these you've watched, but this is, at least you showed up. This isn't the worst that we've had to mimic.
Okay. In all fairness, let's address that though, because was it 2 weeks ago in Donnie?
Oh, I wasn't talking about Captain.
Donnie actually had a terrible, terrible storm at his house. So we are not actually making fun of anybody, but it is pretty funny and we appreciate your diligence.
That's a good thing. I was going to bring that up. So Captain Donnie was supposed to be on for a second time. The poor guy, he had such a bad storm. There's a tree that fell on his truck.
Brand new truck.
His boat lift flipped over, and then his boat got a hole in the hull, and then he broke a bunch of rods the next day. So the poor guy.
But if you know anything about Donnie, I will tell you his trolling motor is okay.
Yeah.
I think we've all had spring and a half luck like that.
So, I guess I was in the process of asking, I don't get to fish the way that you fish. So I'm the kind of person who would, seek out a guide. So somebody who is inexperienced, do you have tips for them? What do you tell those people?
I tell everybody to hire a guide. If it's something you want to try, hire a guide. Don't spend the thousands of dollars for something that you're not going to like. I mean, I do the same thing. When I go to a new body of water, I hire a guide, and then the next time I go back, I got a kind of a clue of what to do, and I ask questions on a charter. What are you doing this for? What are you doing that for? Where are you going? What are you looking for as far as structure and stuff like that? I'm always trying to learn, and then I'll go back and do it myself because you could spend weeks and weeks and weeks trying to catch a fish that somewhere you've never been.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the point that you're making about, telling people to ask questions, like it's okay. And that's what you do, because I think a lot of times people get nervous about that. How much am I allowed to ask? Or, they're maybe nervous to sound like too much of a novice. Nobody wants to be the noob that doesn't know what they're doing. So I love somebody like you who's so experienced that even goes in and has so many questions.
Oh, I bet you over 50% of my charters are guys that have boats already and they already fish. They just want to know how the guides are going out and getting 40 fish to their two, I get a lot of people that already are avid fishermen.
So that's really,
I don't mind sharing. I'll tell you.
But that is a really interesting situation for you, and local guides everywhere. When you have other local people that come, and to be able to share that spot and to share that tip or that tactic, do you ever find that you run into those people again?
Yeah, ice fishing. I gotta watch myself ice fishing because I put in, our Saginaw Bay is so big. I'll put in at least a week or two just getting out to where I want to be. Every day we move a little farther. And the first week that I take clients out there, they got the GPS in the pocket, which I don't mind. But when they sit right on your hole, you got a whole lake here, hundreds of thousands of acres. You got a safe trail out. I already did all the work for you. They sit right on your hole. So I tell them, because we do what's called tag-alongs, where if they got their own stuff, they come out with us. They just want the safe, journey in and out. And I tell them, nobody messed with you today when you paid, so I don't expect you to mess with anybody tomorrow when they pay. Just go away. You can come out here, but it's not my lake. But just have some courtesy to the people that are paying. That's kind of what I tell them.
Well, and you make a few really good points because, as far as not sitting immediately on that hole, there's something to be said about that, is that I know it sounds dumb. Fish swim around. That simply is a thing. And when they get beat on so much time after time in one spot, they may be likely to move anyway. So, you might be accidentally giving them a great tip.
Yep. Yeah. I will. You'll never see me within a mile of the great big crowd ever. I stick to myself, and I usually do a lot better without the noise.
Yeah. I do also love the idea, though, of a tag-along trip, because for so many people, especially, new to fishing, new to the ice, and especially when you're situations where you're only going out as far as, the ice has grown, that's a huge factor in, being a new angler and catching fish.
Yep. A lot of them just need either they don't, have all of the right equipment yet, but most of them just need the confidence and somebody to show them how to actually do that, and be safe doing it. So usually 2 or 3 tag-alongs, and then they'll start going off on their own, but no, I try to keep everybody safe out there, and we get them all back in at night, in case something happens. And a lot of them, they just feel really comfortable following.
Yeah, that's really excellent. And I love that you're saying, 2 or 3 trips, makes a big difference for people. And, I think it's one of those things at that point, you start to learn, the terrain, or, what the bottom composition, or, the bait that's bringing them places, or whatever. You learn a lot in that time. And I think that is something that's super, super valuable as an angler, to be able to apply that in different situations.
Yep. Saginaw Bay is kind of just a fish bowl. Like I fished over your way a lot this year at the beginning of season. I fished with Hawthorne quite a bit this year, and you guys fish completely different than we fish. You guys got a lot of structure, a lot of rock piles and stuff. We got a sand bowl, so we don't run and gun all the time. If we don't get bit in an hour or two, we still stay put because them fish are constantly moving. And I had a good time over there, like you said, doing different stuff. I going back to Mille Lacs from Christmas until February 1st this year to guide with Brad.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
I like that much.
Brad's really fun to hang out with, and we haven't. So funny story is my parents. I grew up about 20 minutes south of Mille Lacs, and I never really fished it much. I was always a smaller lake fisherman, but we get to see Brad at all the shows, and he's just super fun to hang out with. But even though I'm so close, like I go back and visit my parents, I've never got to fish with Brad on Mille Lacs yet. So we're still trying to hook that up.
Oh yeah, he's fun to fish with. He's a busy man though. He takes a lot of people on his charters. Yep. And I was super surprised when I first got out there. He asked me, he says, "You want to help me with a couple charters? I'll put you up and stuff, and you can see what it's about." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." I'm running 6 guys. I roll out there, and he's running 12 or 15 guys, and they're running and gunning all the time too. Yeah. Like, holy smokes, man!
Yep.
Well, I mean, that's a great thing to point out because the amount of work that goes into that. I mean, you think about the physical, like, if you're moving houses, if you're drilling holes, but even just mentally thinking through what are the fish doing? Where can all of these people go? It's a whole group. When you're thinking about yourself, all you have to do is find one lucky hole. When you're a guy, you have to find like 50 of them.
Yeah.
That's funny. I love also hearing from you, though, about the difference in the fishing from Minnesota to where you're at, because I think, honestly, that's what I love to hear about on the show, because so many of our viewers and listeners and all that are from like Minnesota or Midwest type areas. So, I mean, I love hearing from you. You don't even have rock piles. It's much more of a bowl type strike. You sit because the fish move around. That's huge in the decisions that people make as an angler. So I love hearing about that.
Oh yeah. But this year I got kind of schooled. Head to head was down on Detroit River this spring. Mm-hmm. And we got kind of schooled because we are hand liners and jiggers. Casting, unless you're a bass fisherman, casting is unheard of in Michigan for a walleye. And the Michigan boys got schooled pretty good. And it's gonna change fishing on Detroit River forever because we drift down at a high speed and then we pack up and run back once we find that pot of fish. And like Justin Snyder and all them guys, they would spot lock and they're pitching. And that it didn't go over real good with everybody who's trying to drift through, But now, before I left Detroit this year, all the locals are spot locking. So it's going to be interesting on what happens, and it's all because of head to head. The Wisconsin, Minnesota boys come in and started casting, and they cleaned up. They cleaned up on the fish. I mean, Nick Schertz, he hammered it.
That's a lot of fun to hear about, because people sometimes watch these shows or, watch YouTube or whatever's on this different media. People are putting this information out there. Like, here is what works, but it's amazing when you feel like a whole culture of people like take it on and you see a shift in the way that even the people around you are fishing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. I mean, that head to head, I had Nick Schertz casting next to me. And I could see him casting, but I couldn't really see if he was catching because I'd pull up to him and drift away, jigging vertically. But then I turned on my phone, and every 5 seconds, I got looking over. The guy's pulling fish in under the radar, That's what changed everything. When you could actually see the guy right there live doing it, and it's not just a put-on show,
Yeah.
He was doing it.
That reminds me of, a few times we're by the Wolf River. There's a place called Winneconne. It's a town, but people fish out of it. It's a huge tourist place. Tons of boats are there all the time, but tournaments launch out of there all the time. And it always really makes me laugh when we're there on tournament days because there's people there, trying all of these different methods, working really hard, like breaking a sweat at all the casting they're doing. and we like go by and we're like, you know, like just drifting like a worm, and then like throw it back into the water, and you see these guys like, you know, and so it is really funny to be able to, you know, fish by somebody who does something totally different from you and see what works and see what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's way more fun to be on the what works side, though.
It is. But again, it's also hard to not do what you're accustomed to doing. You know, we grew up trolling because of our big water, and nobody casted, nobody even really jigged. And the thing is with the casting, I noticed them guys they can with side imaging and down scan, they're targeting one fish. We're putting a lot of fish in our boat, but they're pulling winning bags, you know.
Yeah.
So it changed fishing altogether around here quite a bit this year.
Okay, and so I have to ask one other question, but I might have mixed up what you said. So did you say that you were hand lining for walleyes like in the boat?
Yes. Yeah, we do.
So tell us about that, because I would never do that.
Okay, so what you got is you're in a river and you're trolling upstream into the current, but you got to zigzag the river from side to side because I don't know how to explain it. You got to zigzag because it stops the lures.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're doing it, you got a 2 pound, you got your 2 pound weight. It's about a foot and a half long. And that's hooked to what they call a shank. And it's got 6 different positions with swivels on it. You run 3 leads. You might run like a Rapala, I don't know, like a little number 5 floater on the bottom on an 18-foot lead. You might bump up to a number 7 floater on a 25-foot lead. And you got all these leads out there. And then you hand line it. You just touch that, just like jigging. You're touching that 2 pound weight. And it's hooked to a retracting reel. So when you get a fish, you pull it up and it retracts in. And then you pull in the top one. If it doesn't have a fish on it, you pull in that 30-foot lead and throw it over your shoulder. And then you pull in the 25-foot lead. And you hand line these fish in, and it's very effective in the muddy rivers. I mean, you can outdo the casters and the jiggers, you know, any day of the week in a dirty river with that. And that's usually only when I do it is when the tournament time, muddy river. Otherwise, I'll try jigging them. But
only for people who are brave enough to throw a lure or jig over your shoulder, because that's me. But no. No, I do love this though, because, you know, first of all, it is super fun, you know, to hand line a fish. You know, there's something about that fight. You know, there's something about tip ups in winter. You know, people just love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, anytime that you can put a bait down there that's a slightly different presentation than the way fish are seeing it any other time, that might really give you a bit of an advantage.
Oh yeah, yep.
Awesome.
No doubt.
That's crazy. So I'm like a little bit blown away by that. You know, I definitely learned something here today, because I almost always in summer have a rod in my hand. So
Now you'll be YouTube and hand lining on Detroit River, and you'll be able to see what they do.
We're not hand lining crappies.
Maybe though.
You can try it from the front of the boat if you want.
Oh my goodness. So how do you spend your summer then? What are you fishing for? Back to walleyes?
After the 4th of July, well, here's a little story. 2 years ago, I had a lady run a stop sign, and it totaled out my truck and boat and everything. And it took about a year to get a boat and get a truck, you know, through the insurance and get everything fixed up and ready to roll. So I took on another job. I've always farmed my whole life. So I kind of went back to the farm from July until Christmas is what I do now. I still fish, you know, probably at least 4 or 5 times a week. Guiding, but once July 4th comes, it's strictly Sundays, and we're chasing lake trout and salmon, trolling. I got a little spot that sits off of a reef right on the edge of Canada over on the east side of Michigan, and takes longer to run there and get back than it does to get your fish. It's great. So you can jig them, you can troll them, and it's just a good time, and people book that right up. And you never know what you're going to catch. We call them mixed bag trips. So we'll get Atlantics, lake trout, steelhead, king salmon, walleye. I've gotten tons of walleye out of 300 feet of water.
Wow.
And, whitefish. It's just a mixed bag trip, and that's kind of what we do in the hot weather.
So are all those fish biting on the same bait, or you have different rods all set up for people?
No, they're biting on all the same baits. We run Magnum spoons like Silver Streaks and Flintstones and stuff like that, Warriors. It's just we got so many lake trout. Once we catch our limit of lake trout, or even before that, if they want to jig, we'll drop down 3-ounce jigs and jig them up, and there's, I don't know, lake trout get a bad rap, but there's nothing like jigging up a 30-pound lake trout out of 200 foot of water. It's fun.
Yeah.
That is a lot of fun. When people think about destinations, and travel has been so limited lately, going out of the country, people want to reel in a big fish. You can go and you can get a similar experience in other places, because that truly is an adventure to reel in a big fish from deep water.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We got a reef system that runs from the tip of the mitt all the way down towards Port Huron, down at the bottom of Michigan down here. Just runs the whole thing. So I went out about 5 years ago and I did the standard rock trip out of Lake Superior jigging, big lake trout. And I thought we can do that in our water. And I went out there, and first time I went out there, I caught a half a dozen lake trout, and I kind of got it perfected, and we can do that here. And it's only half the run. It's only 27 miles.
That's awesome. But that can be a trip that's really hard for somebody to take when they don't know what they're doing. So, you're talking about, it can be so easy, it can be so fun. But again, that is the reason to get a guide.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't want to, unless you had the right boat, I don't know if I'd want to do it alone. I mean, you get 30 miles out and there's no cell signal. There is no shore to look at. There's nothing. And, it's pretty intimidating too. When you look at the screen and there's 600 feet of water, 700 feet of water, it's a little bit intimidating out there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to get in trouble out there.
Well, and so, especially when you're talking about these windy days, that's obviously, part of the reason that's been such an effect on that fishing is you just can't even get out there.
Right.
With that being said, though, we've had a lot of sun. And so with summer, it's a lot of sun. And we kind of put you on the spot before, because we were talking about sun gear and you were talking about your graveyards that you wear all the time. Is that your favorite striker gear?
No. I made up a little list of my favorite striker gear. I got it right here. I'm going to put my hard water suit as my number one piece of equipment. That is the whole center of my operation. That's more important to me than all the other equipment, the GPS, the shanties. Those are all needed and high priority, but I don't get to sit and fish. I'm walking shack to shack all day, checking on people. My hard water suit is probably my number one piece of equipment. And then I would go to probably my adrenaline rain gear.
Oh,
Because that's what saves my butt out here. I don't cancel for rain. I'll cancel for wind, but if it's drizzling, you're not going to melt. We're going.
But the fish love the rain.
Oh yeah, I love fishing in the rain, and especially in the clear water. It it's like having a few waves or something. It seems like they just bite. It might just distort the surface or something. But no, the like the cool wave stuff. The high tide hoodie, the graveyard shirts, the stretch fit gaiters, and the barrier pants. I love them. If you're a guy, you'll understand. They're cool. You're not sweating. You're not, But 2 years ago, I've been doing a lot of videos on them products, because 2 years ago, I had a bunch of basil cut off my ears and my face and inside my mouth and stuff. And I'm not the one that puts sunblock on. I hate it. My face hates it. It's greasy, and you got to put it on every hour. So the UPF clothing has been a lifesaver for me. I'm all about, I got this much showing when I'm out there, and it's all UPF clothing, and everybody says, aren't you burning up? And I'm actually cooler with my graveyard shirts on than I am when I go out there and take my shirt off. The sun's burning on your skin, and of course my body's pure white now, like an Irishman, but I'm not getting stuff cut off my ears and face anymore. And I try to push that hard, because that's pretty painful stuff. I've had quite a bit of it cut off my face from being on the water, and it's pretty important to me. So I push it pretty hard. I do a lot of videos on that stuff.
Well, and it is something that everybody takes totally for granted until it is, until they're affected by it. And, because we all live out in the sun all of our lives. And so it's always been okay. And so why wouldn't it continue to be? But I myself also noticed that like after last summer, maybe 2 summers ago, 2 summers ago, I started getting on my shoulders like different little tiny freckles that I never had before. So, in those cases, visiting a dermatologist, making sure that it's freckles and not anything, else than that.
Yep.
But, beginning to cover up is something that's super, super important to us as well. And I kind of miss my tan, but, when it's for your health, you don't want to go through something terrible.
Right. It's not fun getting it burned off. And, I started getting the freckles like you did, the little brown spots and stuff. And I think it was 3 years ago at the NPAA convention in Madison, and Ron Linder said to me, he says, boy, you gotta do something. He says, that's the exact same as what I had. And Gary Parsons was there, and he told me the same thing. He says, you got to go get looked at and you got to do something different because whatever you're doing is not working. Yeah. And I said, well, I don't do nothing. And they said, there you go. So, once Mikey Anselmo and the guy in Jeannie and them guys started putting the UPF on me, it changed my whole fishing, changed my whole world on fishing. That's all I wear. I got 2 of these for every day of the week, and I wear them all. I might have a black one tomorrow and a gray one Wednesday. And no, I love them.
That is a great point, though, because there is quite the range. I mean, look at you. You're sitting there wearing red. You talked about the black, the gray. Josh is orange, and that comes in other colors. I'm in a nice dark blue, and this comes in other colors. There's a different fit or style or color, for whatever type of angling you're doing, whatever you like to wear, whoever you are, whatever your favorite color is. And that does make it fun and easy to wear, all the time.
I actually had my green high tide on today, but I took it off for this just because I always got the thumb holes through, and every one of my high tide hoodies are stained black because of black worm dirt. Oh, digging night crawlers out all the time. I can't get it out, so I figured I better not wear it for good.
Oh my gosh. I think that the high tide might be the only one with the thumb holes, and I'm always jealous about that. But check out those low tide hoodies because they are stain resistant. That's so funny. Oh my goodness. The other thing that I was thinking is, as far as some of the sun gear goes, if you are one of those people who unfortunately did get burnt and every item of your clothing is uncomfortable right now, these are super soft materials. And in the case of the Alpha Burst shirts, it is literally a cool material. So if you are looking that you need to wear something to work or the grocery store, wherever it is you're going, this is even a great option for after the fact. So, you never want to have to deal with that too, but at least in worst case scenario, you're comfortable then as well.
I tell people I'm really impressed with the barrier pants. They're so comfortable. The other night at night I'll throw some sweatpants on or something, but I left my barriers on it and they're so light and comfortable. I went to bed with them, woke up in the morning and realized I didn't put my sweatpants on. I left my barriers on. Swear to God.
Oh my gosh. That does remind me though, for ice season, that's what we do is you layer up. A lot of people are ice camping, staying out, hot tenting, I think is the term that came to be. But when you have those layers that are comfortable enough that you can sleep in them, sometimes that is a big factor in being out there. So that's awesome. I love that story.
The barriers are rainproof too. I've wore them in the rain with just my adrenaline coat, and they shed the water just like they're lighter. If it's real hot out, that adrenaline can get warm sometimes when it's muggy and hot. But the barrier pants shed a lot of water. I didn't get wet.
Huh. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to, I guess, a little bit of rain coming up too. Well, I don't know if we're getting much. Yeah, but we'll see what happens. So we are getting to about that point in the evening where we usually start to sum things up. But I have first, Brandon, I know that we have a whole bunch left to talk about, so maybe we can have you on again another time. Yeah, during winter even, that would be so fun. But we really appreciate you spent a whole bunch of time working to be here with us tonight. We had a great time while you were here. So for the people who stuck with us through all of that, can you remind us how people get a hold of you for your guide trips?
Yeah, they can go to teamgunsmokesportfishing.com, and there. They can get my website or my phone number, my email address. Everything is on there.
That's awesome. And then we did also post to the comment section here already. It looks like your Facebook page. So, if people want to go on, follow along, see what's going on, that's a great resource to use as well.
Yeah. I don't do as much Facebook as I used to just because we're busy this time of year, but they can go on there. I always check my Facebook messages, at least once a day. So awesome. Facebook message, and once they go on my webpage and get my phone number, or my Facebook page and get my phone number, you can shoot me text messages. It's just something I've become used to, is just my phone goes. So
awesome. So Brandon, hold tight 1 second here. But for the people at home, thank you for being with us. It's always a lot of fun talking about all the different kinds of things that we get ourselves into. If you guys have other questions or comments, after the fact, or if you're listening to or watching this video later on, drop your comments still in that question or in the comment section, and we'll still get to that. So thanks again for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you on next week's episode of Hook, Line, and Striker.
Hi, everybody.